Welcome to a very special edition of Knickerbocker Banter. I'm your host, Harris Wishard. With me, you know his work in film, as an actor, as a director, as a producer. But today, I think he's most proud of being a Knick super fan, a man of the people. Thank you so much for being here, Ben Stiller.
Yeah, Harris, good to be here, man. Uh, Exciting times, good times.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's been a couple months and we're all kind of still on a high. And I just wanted to touch on because we met you at Twitter Day last year, and I kind of just wanted to touch on what you've meant to the community and the time you've given and the relationships you built. Obviously, Sean comes to mind, but what's been so special about that and what's been enjoyable and adding to what not only the Knicks have done, but what you've built within the community as well?
Thanks, man. Yeah, no, it's definitely been unexpected for me over the last few years. I think the connection over Twitter, which I really don't like. I don't like Twitter. I'm like semi addicted to it, I guess, and I'm not proud of that. But I also think it's I think many times I'm just to be honest, many times over the last few years I've thought about getting off of Twitter, and literally the only reason I have not done it is because of the Knicks community that I really appreciate. It's like an actually great positive thing, and that's for me. It just kind of developed over the last few years, like starting to have a place, I guess, for me to express myself during games. Uh, and then seeing that there were these other fans out there who were experiencing the same thing, and the relationships that kind of built out of that. And I guess maybe it's just been with my Knicks fandom over the last few years because having so many years of being a fan where there wasn't really anything going on, and it's just like tough times for
Hmm.
years and years where you're just sort of like, yeah, I'm a Knicks fan. Maybe someday we'll get it together. But I always loved going to the games, but I never had that sense of community with the other fans. And it just sort of developed, I think, over the last, like 3 or 4 years of seeing, the response sometimes when I do a tweet and then starting to follow, the other crazy fans who were as into it as I was, and then learning so much about the game, and that's been so much fun too. And then, well, yeah, like watching Sean's post game videos, I just found him so entertaining, and then being able to reach out to him and connect, and then we sort of developed this friendship, kind of
Yeah.
an unexpected friendship.
You would make a lot of people upset if you left Twitter, by the way.
No, well, I did stop for a while, a couple of times, like when different things were happening where I was just like, I can't do this. But honestly, it's for me, like the connections that I've made is so worth it. And I really now look forward to, sharing that experience when, especially, during the season and then this season, this when the dream came true, like to be able to have uh, everybody be able to share that. And Nick's Twitter Day last year kind of evolving into something that became like the real life, connection with everybody. That was really fun. I was bummed I couldn't be there this year. I was working in England, so I couldn't be there. But I was, keeping tabs on it. And then I said, "You were the MVP, right? Is that right?"
Yeah, no, and I said to my
Really
family,
incredible.
the only thing that would have made the day better was, someone I looked up to growing up and everything that you've accomplished, the laughs you've created in our house would have been to have you present the trophy. But then when I messaged you, said you'd come on, I said, all right, this is better than that. So
Yeah,
to be able
well,
to have the conversation.
I mean, I feel like next year we have to, I don't know, like should be televised. I don't know, something. It's got to be in a venue. I think we have to go like to like a bigger venue next
Yeah,
year.
definitely. And
Yeah,
so many people doing great groundwork for that. And I also want to touch on Brunson and Hart because they did show up. And so I remember saying this to my dad. Here you have a guy that might be the most popular, one of the most popular people on the planet right now. And he's getting dragged in a million different directions. He kept his word, as did Josh. Where else is this going on right now in sport? Like it's just a
it's
really unique
incredible.
thing. Yeah.
It is. It's really unique, and I think that's the thing that's developed organically over the last few years with the fans and this team. I think this team is just a special group of guys in terms of how they relate to the fans and
Mm,
how from my point of view, like it seems like. the cliche sort of like NBA star, all those, the trappings that go with that, with which, sports stars in general, these guys get paid gazillion dollars and they live somewhat sometimes in a different universe, in
Mhm.
terms of how they're treated, how they go through life. And, what a strange thing it must be to be an athlete where, you kind of get all this stuff thrown at you and for this short amount of time, with, that you're, useful to the NBA or to whatever league you're in. It's like I can imagine it's a very, challenging thing to experience that and to stay open and connected to the fans because there's so much vitriol also that gets, said to these guys when they don't do well. So I can imagine a lot of these guys put up a barrier of some type, for their own, kind of sanity or whatever, who knows what. But uh, for some reason, this team, these guys on the Knicks, this current team, they just are so open. I think, maybe it's also generationally, they seem like so comfortable with social media, and that's because that's what they've grown up with, and but they have a willingness to interact with the fans, and I think it's just this bunch of guys, there just
Mhm.
seems to be a lack of egos and obviously, in terms of how they've approached putting the team together and the sacrifices they've made to make this team work. But then they have this sense of humor, a real self-awareness and willingness to connect. And yeah, I was just so impressed that Josh and Jalen, took the time to do that. They made a point to reach out. I was sort of one of the intermediaries, kind of, to helping connect that. But it's just very important to them. I think they take it seriously. They appreciate the fans, and I've never seen anything like it though. Like this, real connection on a personal level, and it's been great. It's been so much fun to experience. I think for all of us.
Absolutely. And years ago, I met Mike Breen. He came on the show in October, and I pointed at the Mike Breen rule and just I couldn't believe how humble he was. And I've told him that since. Like, here's a guy that's the voice of the sport, and he takes the time with the fans. And I feel like these guys have been the same way. And then everyone's asked me, "Hey, you nervous to talk to Ben?" I said, I just feel like he acts like he is one of the guys, and that humility, because most of the time when you see people reach a certain level of success, and I'm sure you've experienced and have been around it, there's that standoffish. I'm sure it gets tired. Everyone's calling your name all the time. I've just been really taken back and impressed. Towns, like especially, giving me so much time at I went to like a Knicks Under the Lights event. So that really is. It makes it even better when your team is not only great, but now it seems, and you know them a little bit better, that they're great people and easy to root for.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, definitely a cat. Yeah, I've spent a lot of time with Cat over the last year, and just watching how he interacts with the fans. I mean, this guy's been, famous since he was like a kid, probably, and he's, like his whole career, you
Hmm.
know. I think it's one of the reasons why he's so good is he's dealt with pressure his whole life. I mean, and that's a whole other story, like how he got through the season and what this incredible, performance from him in the light of what this season was. But to watch him with fans and to watch how incredibly generous, and this it's not bullshit, it's a real. It's just like they really, he puts himself out there. You see these people. It's not easy because
Mm.
you know you just never know. I mean, look, I know just like from having been recognizable for a lot of years, you always want to try to connect with someone if they come up to you and you appreciate when someone's, giving you some sort of heartfelt, appreciation of what you do. It's great. Nothing feels better. But also sometimes, you never know where you're at in your life at that moment when someone comes up to you on the street. You could have just found out some horrible news, life stuff. We're all going through life. So, a lot of times people don't understand that because they're just seeing you in that moment. And it does take another level of being willing to kind of just understand that they can't know where you're at, but also the willingness to acknowledge that this moment for that person is important. And I find you get as much out of it as they do if you're open to it. And but yet it's not easy for these guys. So they got to do everything else in their life, and especially after winning the championship. I
Hmm.
mean, what this last couple months has been for these guys in terms of their schedules and everything that they're doing, and that they made the time to connect with the fans and to be around New York and to be at Twitter Day and other, I've seen other stuff too that they've been doing that is just, above and beyond and an appreciation that they have, I think, for what this situation is. So it feels like it's a mutual thing that, I've gotten so personally as a fan. Yeah, I'm just a fan. Like Breen is he's always been a Knicks fan. He just happens to be one of the best, uh, really the best in the world at what he does.
Yep.
And he makes, the thing is he makes games so much more exciting when you watch them the way that he calls them because he calls them genuinely. And he also is able to do it without, he does on the national games without being biased. And I know, he's very aware of that too. But when it comes to making time for the fans, I mean, it goes all the way from Clyde. Clyde, it's like I never, every time I see him, someone's coming up to him and he's just the kindest, most generous. He'll talk about, the 73 series, talk about 70. He'll talk about, Knicks history with you. And it's special.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
the 53-year drought is over. I started watching the team in the late 90s. I know you talk about going to the games with your dad in the 70s. I mean, it
Yeah.
really is incredible to think about that dark cloud and now going into a season without it, right? And putting that behind us. But can you talk about that upbringing a little bit and just what basketball meant and just the early memories of the Garden and basketball for you?
Yeah. I mean, it is weird to end a season not in pain. Because that's the thing. It always, I was talking to my wife about that. Like, it's always usually there's a point where it just becomes painful at the end of the season, whether it's, ending with Indiana or whatever. Like, you're just like, okay, we have to go through that. It's always going to get, and this is the first time it's like, oh no, it's like the opposite. It's better than anything.
Hmm.
I don't ever remember that because I was 8 years old in '73. I don't really remember winning the championship. I remember though do I do remember going to the Garden around that time.
Hmm.
My dad had a couple of friends who were season ticket holders, so they had seats in the eighth row behind the Nick basket, so they knew all the refs, they knew the players, and they were restaurant guys, New York restaurant owner guys, and so they would take us to games and like introduce us to play. I remember getting introduced to Phil Jackson when I was a kid, as a memory I
Wow.
have when he was warming up under the basket. I remember, over those years, being a big Spencer Haywood fan, Bob McAdoo, love those guys. Then as I got older in my 20s, like late teens and 20s and Bernard King era, Bernard was my guy. And then I moved, and so I was around for, I used to take pictures. I used to bring my camera, my film camera, and go home and uh, develop the pictures in my little home dark room I had in my bathroom. And so I take these kind of like not great pictures of, like Michael Ray Richardson shooting and people like that. And just it was just part of my life. The Knicks are part of my life, and then I moved to Los Angeles when I was about 21, 22. And so I like lived in LA for about 20 years. And that was that was the 90s era. So I went to some of those games and I saw on Twitter when the finals were happening, they were like unearthing old videos of Nick fans that have been around.
You were there.
I know, I saw some interview where he sounded really arrogant and ridiculous in like 1994, 99, whatever it's saying that maybe it's 99 thinking,
Yeah,
but
99. I remember him.
yeah, yeah. But I wasn't really around fully because I was living in LA and I never was ever, I went to I went to Lakers games over the years, but I never was into going to the Laker games. It just felt very Hollywood to me and just like a whole different thing. So I never stopped being a Knicks fan, but then when I moved back to New York in 2010, 2011, and my son was, like 5 or 6 and my daughter was like 8 or 9. Like my daughter was never into it, but I started taking my son to games, and that's when I kind of reignited going to the games And of course, it was kind of a tough era, except for Melo. It was we had the Melo era, but it was also a lot of pain, through that period too.
No question. We got to talk about game four. I mean, I'll be indebted to my brother-in-law for the rest of my life because he asked me before the series, Harris, what do you think game four, or game six? And I said, I think the Knicks are going to win the series in 6 games. But his response was, we've both never been to a finals game. Why would we risk that? So, George, I love you because what we watched that night is something that I always will get goosebumps talking about because I think it's this team in a nutshell and the resiliency to be able to overcome that lead. Just want you to touch on, like, obviously now 7, 8 weeks later, what that night was like for you from your perspective.
It's kind of like a blur a little bit, the whirlwind of it. Those kinds of games are always they're really, bad until they get incredible.
Mm.
So my memory was like, oh wow, this is really not going well. I was with Christine, and usually during the season, I'm the one who's like the super positive one in my family about like everything, like new player, new coach. Whatever. I'm always gonna be like, okay, I'm gonna be open minded. It's gonna work out,
Mm.
and then there's usually more naysaying around my family or more like kind of like I don't know. In this game, I was so like, this isn't. I don't think we're gonna. I don't think we're gonna. This. I think this is gonna be another loss, and Christine was like, no, no, we still have time. And to her credit, was the one who's, said, you gotta just, this isn't over. But when that second half started, I mean, the run as it started to happen was just so surreal because and I kept on not trusting it, but yet when they did get within 10 or so, I was like, okay. But then it kept on going back and forth where and it was going to be one of these where they're never going to get over the hump. And then, started to come together. I mean, it was just thrilling. And I mean, it's like literally like one of the most exciting experiences I've ever had in my life. I freaked out. I ran out on the court with my camera because I was with my phone, like
Mm.
after the OG tip. And I think that was like before, because I didn't even realize the game wasn't over. I knew, but it was so, and I
Imagine
knew
a
I had like
technical
a
there.
little, what's that?
So imagine a technical there. I don't think that's
Yeah,
going
yeah,
to
yeah.
be
But I mean, and I had like a little bit of leeway because we were officially working on the documentary, but it's not like I'm allowed to run out of my court. But I see this picture of him like running out my camera like a crazy man. It was it was amazing, and I'm like everybody else. I'll like if the highlights will come up on my phone. I can't watch them without laughing or smiling. It's just incredible, and like I'm just so happy like that OG is the one who had that shot because he's just like just what a great person and what a great Nick and like so he's just so funny. That interview after the game, just the classic, when he breaks into the smile. It's like, yeah, it's kind of cool. I mean, so, it's everything about we love about this team, and it's I got to be the best experience I ever had in the Garden for sure.
Yeah, and I'll say this, and I know it's unique to have a situation where usually the usher, I'm sitting up in 213, is like, all right, 5, 10 minutes. They let people stay. I was there for maybe like 45 minutes after the game. No one wanted to leave. I think everyone also understood by winning that game, essentially they won the championship. The Tracy Morgan clip with him emotional, getting out of his car. I actually got to see that. I was crossing the street and everyone was making a huge commotion. And Tracy got out of his car and started hugging random Knick fans after that game. It was just, honestly, it felt like we were
Tracy,
living in.
Tracy was crying. I
Mm,
was with him. I actually have some video on my phone that I think will be part of the doc,
mm.
which he was just emotional, crying. Everybody felt so connected, you know, everybody felt it was the ultimate community Knicks community thing where like everybody was just so happy, and then that then when we won it, that just translated to the city and to the parade and being around New York, in that right after, just like the most incredible feeling of happiness in a city that everybody's usually not connecting with each other. But yeah, everybody wanted to stay there forever and not leave. um, it's look, I'm smiling thinking about it.
Yeah.
It's incredible. And
Were
we,
you
it,
waiting for someone to say cut and all right, this is not real life anymore during the parade? I mean, I know you've been in film your whole life, so it's just, I've heard you say on podcast, I mean, that the best part about this is it's not a movie, it's a real experience.
right. Yeah. I mean, that parade was surreal because it was just so to see everybody out. The most amount of Nick fans I've ever seen have been at the Garden, but then to be outside and seeing so many people as and to be on one of the floats, so you get to travel through it and see the different waves of people, how it kept going on, and how everybody was just sharing the same feeling, and it made you feel very human and very just like this feeling of like, oh, I'm part of this group that we all feel the same, and how welcoming, because I've never had that too, where like people are calling me champ, right? People are calling
Yeah,
me,
you can.
like, I mean, I got like, I know Dirk Nowitzki a little bit, sorry, name drop, but like
You
but
can.
he like texted me like, "Hey, congrats, champ," and I'm like, "Oh, I didn't do anything, but thank you." But yes, but the thing is, the appreciation that the players I think felt for the fans was that they included us in as being the champs too with them, and it's a shared feeling because even in that game four, I don't know what you think. You were up there, maybe like a little bit higher up than I was.
Mhm.
I never really heard any boos or it got quiet, but I never heard anybody really turning on a team.
I'm so glad you said that. I put a tweet out the other day that how proud I was of the Garden crowd that night. I think it was unbelievable that the game got to 29, I think was the biggest lead. And because of what the team has done up until that point, being up 2-1 still in the series in the moments and just it never felt like the crowd turned at all. And
Yeah,
in fact, there were moments where I don't know if you can call them a standing ovation, but they were trying to create juice in the game. And then the craziest part of it all, and I tell everybody this about that experience, is once it got to 18, 16, there was a buzz that you would have thought the game was tied.
yeah,
That's how used to the Knick fan how has become with all even last year when they didn't get it done, they had the 20-point comebacks in Boston, Indiana, how resilient the group is. As soon as Hart misses the layup, all
yeah,
three of his teammates run over to him and say, let's go. No, no, we're not. Let
yeah.
Alvarado to me is so instrumental in that as well. Energy, positivity. We're going to keep competing. It obviously starts with Brunson, but the crowd was, as you said, I thought terrific.
Yeah, what a team, it was such a team win too,
Mm.
and that's also like I think encapsulates what the Knicks are because they're not, it wasn't LeBron or Kevin Durant finally coming to New York and, saving us. It was hardworking Jalen Brunson, who everybody has always underestimated, but who totally believed in, in what he could do and this team and building it over 4 years. It just and the organic nature of that win was just it was everybody, it was Cat, it was Brunson, it was Alvarado, it was OG, it was just like, it was like it was everybody. And that kind of typifies what this team is.
Absolutely. And a non basketball point for just a moment because I was always waiting for, once I knew and was aware of how big of a basketball fan you were, I don't know if you're familiar with the movie with Whoopi Goldberg coaches the Knicks, and then we got like a fever pitch with Jimmy Fallon in the Celtics role. So I,
Right.
I always just thought, all right, we know the Along Came Polly scene, but that's not obviously a basketball movie. So I thought something was coming where I'm like, all right, there's got to either be a scene or he's going to do something, whether it was fiction or I didn't know. And then obviously the doc comes. But did that ever cross your mind through your career that like the Knicks or basketball would be involved in a big way in a main film?
I mean, I love basketball movies when they're good. There aren't that many great basketball movies,
Mm.
over the years. And I'm always kind of like looking out for something like that. I mean, Spike's the one who's done the best,
Yeah,
and been able to kind of take his fandom and turn it into art. And I've never been able to do that. I'm excited about being able to work on the doc in that way, but uh, yeah, like a good basketball movie for me, like movies like Hoosiers.
Mm.
There's a movie from back in the '70s Robbie Benson made called One on One
Okay.
that is,
I got to watch that one.
yeah, about a kid trying to make a college basketball team. But there hasn't really been a great NBA movie for a really long time. It's not like a
Mm.
like Space Jam or something like that. So I'm hoping something can happen someday.
Yeah, I always think about he got game as first and foremost, and maybe Coach Carter comes to mind with Samuel Jackson. That was decent, but I'd always expect we had these like cheesy movies like How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days reference the Knicks. I think like the other
Right.
guys. I
Right.
mean, the Knicks are so mainstream that and again, I can't wait for the documentary. I know with all the hardworking footage you did, Knick fans are
Oh
really
yeah. I
anticipating
mean,
that. Yeah.
yeah, that it's going to be, there's so many different ways to tell that story. And originally, the movie was going to sort of focus on the '90s Knicks, the doc, but this team really, you know, changed everything. So I think it's what I'm excited about is, there's a story to tell now in terms of, from where the team started, what the first championships to this one, and everything in between. And so it's exciting to also include the fandom in the documentary because I think New York and the New York fans and are so much a part of it. It's funny. I got to know Tim Legler a little bit
Yeah.
during the finals run, and
Saw that pod.
yeah, and he really is what he was telling me, like he's Knick fans are a very specific type. This was before we won, that Knick fans hold a lot of, and I said, well, he says, well, what happens is like you guys get really excited, but then when things don't go well, you get like really quiet, you get stressed out. And I'm like, yeah, well, isn't that every fan? He's like, no, it's not every fan. It's like this institutional trauma or whatever it is that we have from things never going well that we kind of, have get lose faith or something. Not lose faith, like you always believe in the team, but you kind of get down and like affects you and you get,
Mm.
but this I feel like has exercised those demons and this team showed like, oh no, this is different than it used to be before we everything would go wrong or we never get the bounce and now this team has changed that. So yeah, it's a great thing.
Well, I'm glad that you're going to be able to be part of it and tell the story. And what I also wanted to ask you, for all the creators out there, for all the writers that are out there, when you think of yourself in the late 80s, early 90s, Ben Stiller's show, SNL, starting to create versus what your talent, what your life is like now and how you've developed and who you've learned from. What's the biggest thing you would tell someone? Like, because I know I started out doing this and then I just starting to fall in love with the writing process as well and telling the story of the games and tweeting about it. What would you tell somebody starting out on the best ways to either improve or, and when you think about yourself, what helped you the most in the course of your career?
Yeah, I mean, I think it comes back to really being in touch with what it is that you want to say or what is you want to see, what is it that makes you feel good when you are not trying to do something that's for somebody else, like, oh, I should do this because they're, if you're a filmmaker, like I should make a horror movie because horror movies are really successful now. You got to do what you do. You have to be who you are and try to please yourself.
Mm.
And because I think when you're a filmmaker or creating stuff in any form, it's like you're the audience, that you're trying to satisfy. And if you can do that for yourself, hopefully people will connect with that because it's organic and it's true to who you are. And I think that's something I've learned over the years. Just like I try to keep coming back to like, well, what is it that I want to see? What and trust that because if you're trying to like kind of think about what other people want, you're never going to really, satisfy anything. It's really, and I know it can sound kind of selfish almost when you say it, but it's actually, I think, the most important thing to stay connected to something that's real, and then people can connect with that themselves.
And by the way, and I know, you know, we're on a time here, but I just really appreciate it. I really do. And you opening about the run a little bit. I didn't expect to get emotional during the dink the other night. I didn't think that I didn't think that one was going to get me. But anytime you put a father and son together, and my dad has been so instrumental in my life and everything that I've accomplished, and how watching him work hard, and he's just been such a great leader and role model. So anytime it could be the cheesy, it could be a Disney movie, but if at the end the dad and the son are there, it pulls at these emotional chords.
Yeah, and I have to say, at the game 5, and you know that hug that Jalen
Mm,
and Brunson shared, it was such a, I don't know, just that really got me when I just watched that on TV. I
mm.
mean, I didn't see it when I was there, but like when I watched that, because it was so much, how much work that they put in together, but then to just see him, just like kind of like a kid as we all are with our dad, that hug really, really got me. And yeah, the father son stuff for sure.
Yeah, and it closed. I even texted Mike this. I said it to him. The life isn't perfect, but there are perfect moments. I mean, in some way, shape, or form, he just always has a way of capturing it perfectly, and nobody does their homework more. So he just, just like you said, that moment was something
Yeah.
very
The
special.
only thing, the only thing is, that I regret is I'm glad that, OG got the tip in, but we probably would have gotten the triple bang if he hit that shot, right?
Yeah, and my phone, by the way, after I had sent the tweet out about the triple bang, you had said something on top of it. Next thing you know, 1,000 Spurs fans are in my mentions. Like, what's going on here? I didn't even. I turned away for like 10 minutes, and you had said something on top of the tweet, the power that you have. But Ben, I really appreciate your time. Like I said, this has been a dream come true for me to connect with people and talk basketball. I could do it all day, and I really look forward to either seeing you at the Garden or hopefully next Twitter Day 3, which we won't want to miss yet.
Definitely, definitely next Twitter day, and definitely at the Garden. And I mean, what an exciting season coming up, right? I mean, the NBA, the crazy, I said the deck chairs on the Titanic, people moving them around trying to do the fix. No, it's gonna be challenging, but it's exciting to see how the East has changed, and what the Knicks are going to do this year, and like the fun that it's going to be going to the first game, and the ring ceremony, the banner, and kind of then it's like, all right, let's go again, and it's going to be a good year.
Yeah, it's great to win. We got the championship, but you know what type of person Jalen Brunson is. You know what type of competitor he is. He's not looking at this as, all right, I'm satisfied. He wants to be one of the all-time guys, and
Yeah,
we're lucky to have him, and we're lucky to be living in the
100%.
glory days. Right, that line in The Office about I wish someone would have told me it was the glory days. Well, I'm telling everybody these are the glory days right now. We'll be talking about this for a long time.
I have to say, for me, that has been the lesson for this experience of this summer, and next week. It's like this is the moment right now.
Mm.
Enjoy this, and it feels great. It actually feels amazing to live in this moment, and I want to live in it as long as I can.
Well, again, thank you so much, and we appreciate you. Again, hope to see you soon at MSG. Before you know it, we'll be at opening night and the ring night. I don't know if that's in the budget for me after how much I just spent in the playoffs, but hopefully, we'll be able to make something happen soon. But all the best to you, and let's go Knicks, man.
Yeah, man, go next.